his revenge. He's not going to admit as much, but it had to be real sweet for him to get a victory in his old stomping grounds.
Well, revenge is a dish best served cold.
Mm-hmm.
Now, talk about an amazing. This was a pretty good game. Raiders-Ravens, and the Raiders end up winning 28-27 on a 4-touchdown performance by Derek Carr. I know the guy that you have to admit you have not been the most favorable to him on this show, but you have to admit he's done a good job so far this year with this.
He's done a good job in the first quarter of the season, and he got a road victory in one of the toughest places to play this season, which is a place I like to call the Ravens' Nest in Baltimore. At the same time, I want to see what he can do against really, really tough opponents down the road.
You know, he threw 3 of those touchdowns to Michael Crabtree, including the game winner with 2.
And having Michael Crabtree to work with is a really good start for a young quarterback.
And now to the New York Blitz at the end.
The New York Blitz or the New York Ineptitude? I mean, let me start with the Jet game first. Can we now admit that Ryan Fitzpatrick is not the answer? I told you this last year when they signed him. I told you that this year when he made that ludicrous, self-absorbed holdout that he was not going to be the answer. Not now, not in the future. And what does this guy do? 9 turnovers in 2 games. Going up against a Seahawk defense, which has always been at the top of the pack in the league. And what happens? Ryan Fitzpatrick, he of the $12 million salary for this season, winds up throwing to Richard Sherman's direction more than once. I mean, granted, Brandon Marshall burned him for a touchdown, but at the same time, Richard Sherman also created 2 picks against Ryan Fitzpatrick. But that's number 1. Number 2, where was the pass rush? I didn't see anybody put even so much as a finger on Russell Wilson.
And this was a guy coming to the game with a bad left and right leg from the first 3 weeks of the season. You look at week 1, he was rolled over in the third quarter by Ndamukong Suh. Then in week 3 against San Francisco, Eli Harold causes a horse collar landing on his left leg, and still he is elusive still, and no Jets pass rusher was able to get him whatsoever. Mm-hmm. And then the fact that Fitzpatrick had no turnovers in the first half, then comes the second half, the fourth quarter, he throws these stupid back shoulder throws that end up getting picked off by Sherman twice, and then the game-ending interception to Earl Thomas, of all people. And
back shoulder throws in which he did not even do so much as step forward in the pocket, which is what good quarterbacks are supposed to do.
It made no sense. And the fact that they abandoned what was actually working in the beginning, the dump-off passes to both Matt Forte and Bilal Powell. That's why you signed Forte, to have him mesh with Powell, because they're both really the same type of back.
And what's going on right now? Matt Forte has barely gotten a sniff of the football in the last 2 games right now. He's become one of the forgotten men, which is not supposed to happen, because you need a good, capable running back in order to take pressure off the passing game.
And they lost 27-17, and the Giants lose 24-10 against a Vikings defense that is top 5 in points per game given up, overall defense, pass defense, rushing defense. This is a team you don't rush, you don't run up the gut with. I don't understand why Darkwa is running up the middle.
And once again, Odell Beckham Jr. shows his complete lack of immaturity, blowing his top after getting a late hit on the sidelines and not getting a penalty. That's number 1. Number 2, where is Eli Manning throwing the ball to? Once again, he committed a silly turnover that, quite frankly, never should have happened. But that's beside the point. The point is, where was the defense? Where was the pass rush? Where was the containment of the running game? I saw none of that from that Giant defense at all in this game.
And both Jerick McKinnon and Matt Asia both had a rushing touchdown that game. That's even worse right there. And this is a defense they paid over $100 million in the offseason to improve this defense.
And they wound up getting burned by a Vikings offense that was dead last in the NFL. A complete and utter embarrassment.
I wouldn't say they were dead last this year. They actually have, if you look at the way they've played this game, especially week 3 against Carolina, they sacked Cam Newton for 8 times and 12 QB hits. The fact that Xavier Rhodes got an interception off of him is showing, that he's returning to what he did years ago, the turnover man. For me.
The Vikings also have Sam Bradford as their quarterback, a guy who has done very little to distinguish himself. And what do the Giants do? They make Sam Bradford look like Sammy Baugh, a Hall of Famer.
And that's it for week 4. Now let's go to week 5 on the bye. Of course, the Chiefs going over that bad loss. Jacksonville, if I'm Gus Bradley, I would have a sigh of relief for the moment. The Saints, very cathartic victory for Drew Brees. And for the Seahawks, business as usual. And that's the teams on the bye. Now, the 2 teams that were played last night, the Arizona Cardinals, San Francisco 49ers on Thursday Night Football. And
you guys have been seeing me yawning all of this time in the first 40 minutes. I'm yawning because I'm still trying to recover from watching this disastrous game from last night. I mean, this was really, really painful to watch at times. Absolutely zero drama in that first half when it was tied at 7. But then the Cardinals make it a whole different ballgame in the second half. They start up their running game, and Drew Stanton, who started at quarterback because Carson Palmer was hurt, did exactly what he was supposed to do. He managed the game, and he wound up getting a really good performance from Chris Johnson. And conversely, Blaine Gabbert still sucks, which leads me to say once again, paging Colin Kaepernick.
Believe me, I'm in the same boat right there, but for some reason, he's making up reasons, Chip Kelly. If he wants to have the shortest career as a 49ers coach, just like Jim Tomsula last year, if I were him, I'd put Kaepernick in next week. Otherwise, it's your doom. It's your job being lost. Now, let's go into the games coming up, the New York in the neighborhood games. We got Sunday night, NBC, Giants visiting the Packers.
I think NBC is going to regret putting this game on television in the first place because after seeing how the Giants had their teeth kicked in against an NFC North opponent last year in the Vikings, who's to say that's not going to happen this time? I mean, granted, Eli Manning has had some big games in Lambeau Field in the past, but those were in the playoffs. This time, this is week 5 of the season, and the Packers are just clicking on all cylinders right now, whereas the Giants continue to sputter on both sides of the ball for 2 weeks straight.
I'm going actually with the Giants this week. They're going up against the 29th ranked pass defense. And this is the week where Manny, I think, will take advantage of that. And this will be the night where Odell Beckham will have his act together. He's going to be calm, cool, collective. He's going to realize that if he doesn't, he could get kicked out of a game. And that's the last thing this Giants offense needs is him being kicked out.
And there's already rumors going around that Beckham is on the verge of being either benched or suspended because of his antics. They're not gonna deny or confirm it, but quite frankly, it's about time this kid be on notice.
Well, I think they probably sat him down and made him realize, like, you do this kind of stuff, you hurt your team. You have to be a team player. You got to be calm, cool, and collective. He will this week. He's going to have a 2-touchdown performance for the first time this season. Mark my words, New York Giants will go into Green Bay in the Pack House and win.
At least he was smart enough to issue a mea culpa, but let's see if he's true to his word on Sunday night.
And now to a game that I'm easily picking the Steelers to beat the Jets. Why? 2 words. Ben Roethlisberger. He's going up against a weak secondary that's given up over 60% completion to opposing quarterbacks on the year. And you got a guy like Antonio Brown who's going to have a 3-touchdown field day against them.
Plus, the Jets have lost 9 out of 10 appearances in Pittsburgh lifetime. Do the math.
Yeah. The only way the Jets will win is if we see Austin Severian-Jenkins, a tight end, actually play for the Jets, which they're the only team in the league without a tight end reception. That's insane in itself.
You know how the Jets can really win this game? Don't turn the ball over. That's number 1. Number 2, use the running game. And while you're at it, if you get in the red zone, put the ball in the end zone.
And now to the game of the week, what could be a preview of Super Bowl 51. The number 1 ranked pass defense in the Denver Broncos against the number 1 passing offense in the Atlanta Falcons visiting them.
I'm not so sure I'd call that a Super Bowl preview. I mean, granted, they're off to really good starts, but when you think about it, these two teams are, I don't want to say mirror images of each other, but they're both really solid at quarterback, although I think Matt Ryan is slightly better because he's the veteran of the two. Plus, they have good receiving cores on each side, but I think the Broncos get the edge because, quite frankly, they're much better defensively.
Well, they're going up against a very tough offensive line. In fact, this isn't a Falcons offensive line that's only given up 8 sacks on the season, the lowest in the NFL. That's pretty good right there. That means you care enough to protect your quarterback and give him enough time in the pocket to make those big plays. That's why they were successful last week, along with the 500 yards from Ryan and 300 receiving yards from Julio Jones. But this week, you're going to see a lot of double coverage on J Square. So guess who's going to get a lot of those passes? Tevin Coleman. And you're going to see plenty of Mohamed Sanu. I'm going with the Denver Broncos still. Mm-hmm. It's going to be a close game, but at the end of the day, I think it's going to come down to a field goal kick. Now, the return of Tom Brady in Cleveland. Yikes. He's going to eat them for breakfast, lunch, dinner, and everything in between. It's a disaster waiting to happen.
I wouldn't even bother watching this game if I were a Browns fan. And it's a good thing that the city of Cleveland has the Indians in the playoffs, because if not, then I think they might have to hold out a little bit longer until basketball season begins with the Cavaliers.
Yikes. And they actually did win last night, Cleveland, 5-4.
Mm-hmm. And they won this afternoon.
So they're 2-0, just like the Blue Jays, man. Off to good starts, both of them. Now the battle of the Beltway. The Washington Redskins versus the Baltimore Ravens. They're only separated by just 33 miles in that area, in the D.C., Maryland area.
And those are some proud fans that they have in the Beltway. I'm not sure who you give the edge to as far as fans are concerned, but when it comes to matchups, I give the edge to Baltimore, quite frankly, because they have the better quarterback in Joe Flacco. Nothing against Kirk Cousins, because he's been able to round himself into form this time, but now I think Flacco has played some of his best football the first quarter of the season so far. And who is to say that there's not going to be a repeat in the second quarter of the season?
The matchup to look for, Josh Norman, the cornerback, versus his old teammate, wide receiver Steve Smith. Both were Carolina Panthers teammates. They're both going to intimidate each other at the line of scrimmage. It's going to get chippy at times. Look out for that. The winner of that matchup helps his team win. Mm-hmm. And I'm going with, of course, the Washington Redskins. I think Josh Norman gets a pick in this game. Minnesota Vikings at home, 4-0, one of 3 4-0 teams, up against the undefeated teams, going up against the Houston Texans. First day game at US Bank Stadium.
This is a really interesting matchup when you think about it. Two teams with rather average play at quarterback right now, but the Vikings, no doubt, get the edge defensively. And think about this. No J.J. Watt for the rest of the season. He had to undergo his second back surgery, which means now Jadeveon Clowney has to be the guy to pick up the slack on that line.
Along with Whitney Merciless. Those are the two main guys in that front seven for the Texans. And they're going to have to try and penetrate that offensive line. That's without Matt Khalil for the Vikings. But the fact that Sam Bradford has gotten off good quick throws, him and Stephon Diggs are really connecting very well together, as well as Kyle Rudolph. In the last 2 weeks, he's thrown touchdown passes too. At the end of the day, though, I have to give this matchup to the Vikings just because of their defense. If you look at the amount of points they've given up in the last 4 games, 16 week 1, 14 week 2, 10 points each of the last 2 weeks. Isn't that insane right there? Their defense is number 1 in points per game. They really are sensational. And if I'm Houston, do not run up the gut like Darkwood did for the Giants. That's just, you're asking for disaster. They're still going to lose anyway. I'm going with the Vikings. Bengals, Cowboys, late afternoon game in Arlington.
Really interesting matchup right there, especially at the quarterback spot with Andy Dalton of the Bengals, Dak Prescott of the Cowboys. This is another tough test for them. If Prescott can beat a Bengals squad that's considered a playoff contender, this would really raise his profile once again.
I think, and this is the thing about Dallas. They were without Tyron Smith these last 4 weeks. L. Collins is now probably done for the year with that thumb injury, foot injury, and a toe injury. And then you have the injuries to Tony Romo and Des Bryant. Mm-hmm. All these injuries, and yet this team is 3-1 because of two rookies with such great poise.
Dak Prescott and Ezekiel Elliott, who I think is the better running back in this game.
Ezekiel Elliott leads the league in rushing yards and yards per carry. He's outstanding. He's had 3 100-yard games already on the season in his young NFL career. And he's going up against a Bengals team that's honestly, defensively, they have some good players. They got DeMonte Pico, Carlos Dunlap, some guys that are going to try and get to Dak Prescott as early as possible. But the fact that Tyron Smith is back this week does help a bit. Mm-hmm. So at least there will be some time for Dak Prescott to get some throws to Cole Beasley, Terrence Williams. I'm going with the Cowboys at the end of the day. As much as I like AJ Green and the Bengals, at home, there's no way that Dak Prescott is going to lose this week. Now, Buffalo traveling up to Tinseltown to take on the LA Rams.
Two teams that are really, really solid defensively, although I give the Rams a little bit more of an edge because they actually have more playmakers defensively.
Especially Aaron Donald. You got Michael Brockers, Alec Ogletree, who's really leading that linebacking core, who's doing great. But for the Bills, they got some not too bad players, including this guy, Zach Brown. This is a guy who replaced Reggie Ragland, the rookie they acquired, and he's done a good job in his stead so far. He had an 18-tackle performance week 4 against the Patriots. Reason why they won, in fact, was because of his and the 2 forced fumbles and the sack he had on Brissett. So it's going to be a battle of the 2 linebackers. Whoever does a better job between Alec Ogletree of the Rams and Zach Brown of the Bills, that team will win. And because of that, I'm actually going with the Bills to win on the road.
This would be a big, big win for the Bills if they were to take this one, having to go 3,000 miles west.
And you look at the last 2 weeks for the Bills, Anthony Lynn has done a better job with the offensive playbook, it looks like. So maybe it's not looked like a panic move after all, letting Greg Roman go. Mm-hmm. Now, on to the next game. The Philadelphia Eagles, off their bye week, heading to Motown to take on the Detroit Lions.
Tough test for the Eagles, though, having to go into Detroit, which has a fan base that when things go well, they can be pretty loud. But at the same time, it's still the Lions, one of the worst teams in the league, with a quarterback who has the skill, yet does not have necessarily the best football IQ, if you ask me.
This is the hot seat game of the week. And the reason I say that, from one Jim Caldwell. Mm-hmm. He needs this victory in the worst way. Because I'll tell you this, he was close last year to being let go.
Yeah.
If they lose this game, Detroit, I would not be shocked to hear come Monday or Tuesday that he's been let go from the team. Because the Ford family can only take so much. And with the losses they had, including week 2 against Tennessee, they had that game 15-3 in that fourth quarter, and they gave it up in the end. They can't afford any more losses like this, but you got Carson Wentz coming to town, and he, for a rookie, 64% completion, 5 touchdowns, no picks, and his best guy he's thrown to is Jordan Matthews. Mm-hmm. Oh, and guess what? He gets 2 people back in his offense, Zach Ertz and, of course, Ryan Matthews, as if they don't have enough weapons already. Yeah, they're going to win easily. I cannot see Detroit taking this game. Now, the Oakland Raiders at home against the San Diego Chargers.
Do I smell trap game in this one? San Diego self-destructed in the second half, blowing a lead to New Orleans. Oakland is on a real high right now. They've gotten some big quality road wins this season, but now they're going to be in the comfort of the O.co Coliseum. And Phillip Rivers, even in spite of the problems that the Chargers have, is still a really good quarterback and they do have some playmakers offensively. Dare I say that this is a trap game? All I will say is the Raiders better be prepared.
The Raiders' defense, if you look at the first 2 weeks, they gave up over 1,000 yards. They had no pass rush whatsoever, especially Khalil Mack. The last 2 weeks, that has changed for the Raiders organization, even with them winning week 2. But the fact is, the Raiders' defense has changed. Ken Norton coming on board as their defensive coordinator. That's really improving things. I like that Khalil Mack finally got a sack last week. And on top of all that, this Chargers team has found ways to lose games.
Yeah.
In the last 5 minutes for some reason. That's what has killed them. Even the week 3 game against Indianapolis, they could have won that game if they didn't give up that 63-yard touchdown pass to T.Y. Hilton. So that's the thing. Carr is going to bank on that. He's going to bank on that secondary giving up all these points. That's another thing. You have to look at all the injuries they had in their secondary. I believe it's like 4, 5 injuries. And guess who's out for the year with an ACL injury? Jason Barrett. That's yet another injury that the Chargers had to deal with this season. With Keenan Allen's ACL, with Danny Woodhead's ACL injury, the fact that Manti Te'o tore his Achilles, and now you got this added to that pot. Oh, and Brandon Flowers, he has a concussion. So that doesn't help either. You know, it's really, you can't ask Philip Rivers to do so much. He can only do the best he can with what he's got. And what he has is not really enough.
Yeah.
The only maybe good thing is Melvin Gordon, who actually leads the league with 6 rushing touchdowns when he couldn't buy one last year. But I cannot see the Raiders losing this game. I'm going with the Raiders to win. Would you, if you had to make a pick in this game?
2 words, trap game. That should tell you everything.
Chargers. Now, next game right here. These are 3 games of 1-3 teams, starting with the Buccaneers and the Panthers.
I hate to say this, but this could be the game where the Buccaneers get themselves a big, quote-unquote, win, because not only is it against a hated division rival, the Panthers might be without their big guy taking the snaps from center, Cam Newton, which means Derek Anderson has to be the quarterback, which means all bets are off.
Without a doubt. And they just let go of their cornerback of the Panthers, Ben Waricki. He's not even on the team anymore because of the play in the secondary. It's really god-awful, this Panthers team defensively. And now with the prospect of Cam Newton being out this week, I cannot see this Buccaneers team not winning this game. I think the mistakes that Jameis Winston has unfortunately made the last 2 weeks, I think he'll correct those errors. Get to Mike Evans. Maybe get some passes off to Charles Sims. You know, get some big plays going right there. I think the turnovers will not happen for Tampa Bay. I'm going with the Bucs to win this game, the battle of the NFC South rivals. Now, right here, another pair of 1-3 teams. The Chicago Bears traveling to face the Indianapolis Colts. Not that much of a travel for them.
As if I haven't done any more yawning than I already have.
Well, you know what? In this game, Jordan Howard the last week, came out very well in his first start. And this is a Bears team that is depleted without their 2 starting running backs in Kadeem Carey and Jeremy Langford, without one of their star linebackers.
And going up against a Colts defense that's just plain dreadful.
Dreadful doesn't even begin, actually does begin to kind of cover it. And how about the fact that the Titans are tied for the worst in the NFL when it comes to points per game scored. They're worst offensively in points per game, and the Bears defense allows the 19th most points. This is going to be a comedy of errors, this game.
Speaking of comedy of errors, what about the Tennessee-Miami game? You have
But just to let you know, Frank Gore could actually pass Jim Brown for 12th all time. That's maybe one of the few good things about this game. I'm actually going to switch my pick. I'm going with the Colts. And now finally,
speaking of comedy of errors, Titans and Dolphins this weekend. You've got a Titans squad where their second-year quarterback cannot protect the football, and a Dolphins squad whose quarterback has major problems moving the offense up and down the field.
It's and for this Miami team, like last week on Thursday night against Cincinnati, they had a huge lead and they gave it up. They couldn't score much on offense after that 7 those 7 points they had with Kenny Stills' touchdown. If the Dolphins want to win this week at home, you got to get good passes to Kenny Stills, Jarvis Landry. You got to get those guys involved. And the running game has been anemic. Really, Jay Ajayi is not who the Dolphins wished him to be. Letting Lamar Miller go in the prime of his career, big mistake. Huge. And they're going to pay for that. Because Arian Foster is an injury away from being out for the year.
Yeah.
And
could it be that Arian Foster could also be washed up?
Yeah, he's at that point where his career is pretty much almost over. And this was a guy who was an undrafted rookie. Had to make his way into the NFL, and he had some good seasons with the Texans. But the groin injuries have not helped. But you got Kenyon Drake, an unproven rookie still from Alabama. And then with the Titans organization, the good thing they have is DeMarco Murray. You know, you got DeMarco Murray, and you have Derrick Henry if they actually utilize Derrick Henry.
I don't see what the problem is, because they're in need of a good, solid running back that could take the pressure off of Mariota. They've got two, and they're not even utilizing them. I don't know what the philosophy is with this team.
I don't know. He's the defending Heisman Trophy winner for a reason. He was great for the Alabama team. He's one of the reasons why they won the national title last year. Use him.
Yep.
Put him in dump the ball off to DeMarco Murray, and then bring in Derrick Henry on third down plays to move the chains. Either way, get this team moving and return to some of that option playing style with Mariota too, who in college can run the ball and throw too.
Yeah.
They really need to do those type of things this week. And this is a Dolphins team defensively, you know. You got you paid so much to get Ndamukong Suh last year.
Yeah.
You got Cameron Wake, and you have Mario Williams now on the cheap.
They should be better, yet the Dolphins have lost 3 of their first 4.
I'm going with the Titans this week. I think you're going to see the coming out party of Derrick Henry. I think Mike Mularkey will realize that, because if he wants his job in Tennessee, this is the week he's got to win. Otherwise, it's curtains. All right, and now for a little college football, we got some
really, really good games taking place this weekend, but
the top
there
5.
are 2 that could be of interest to the real diehard college fan. One of them is in the Southeastern Conference, Alabama and Arkansas. It's a primetime game on ESPN. So far, Alabama has not necessarily been great, but they've done exactly what they're supposed to do. Arkansas needs one good signature win to try and be taken seriously.
And this could be the week, but their secondary is going to have to do a great job covering the likes of Calvin Ridley. If they can do that, they can win this game. And then you got...
There's also the Red River Classic, Texas and Oklahoma. 2 schools that have been rumored to maybe being out of the Big 12, because I know for a fact Oklahoma is not happy being in the Big 12. They want to be in a conference that's going to be considered really, really strong. But that's beside the point. The point is 2 schools, 2 long-standing rivals, and both of their head coaches are on the hot seat.
Without a doubt. The Oklahoma boosters are not happy with Bob Stoops, and the people in Austin are this close to firing Charlie Strong. For both one of these coaches, this could be relief with a victory. For the other, it could be more pain that they'll have to go through in anguish in that locker room. So right here this week.
Yeah, the other game to watch is in the Sunshine State, where Hurricane Matthew has been lurking about. Miami and Florida State, 2 longtime rivals that can't stand each other.
The first time that Miami's in the top 10, nonetheless, with Mark Richt. He's really improving the makeup of this team. They're not just, the team that had these crazy blowout victories the first 3 weeks. They're actually contending. And then you have Tennessee, Texas A&M, 2 undefeated teams in the top 10 in the Southeastern Conference. That is a signature matchup to happen. I cannot wait to see Trevor Knight have a field day. So, with less than 20 seconds to go, Jamie, thank you so much, as always, for being with me on the air. It's really a pleasure. And by the way, tomorrow, Staten Island Academy Performing Arts, From Us With Love, Series 1 Act Plays, 347 Davis Avenue. We'll see you next week here in the Blitz on CTV. Good night, Staten Island.